Welcome to Living an Elevated Existence. I'm Tammy Mastroberte, founder of Elevated Existence and publisher and editorial director of the award-winning Elevated Existence magazine. Joining me today is the #1 best-selling author of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, John Gray, who 20 years later is now revisiting the subject in his new book, which I happen to have here, Beyond Mars and Venus, Relationship Skills for Today's Complex World. USA Today listed the original Mars-Venus book as one of the top 10 most influential books of the last quarter century. And his books, which include Mars and Venus in the Bedroom, Why Mars and Venus Collide, and so many more, have been translated into approximately 45 languages in more than 100 countries. So, John, I want to welcome you in and thank you for joining me today. And, of course, congratulations on the new book.
Well, thank you so much. It just came out, and I'm very excited about it.
Yes, you know, it's so funny because when I first read the original book, I remember reading it and thinking, why am I from Mars in some of these aspects? And thinking, like, what's up with that? Maybe, maybe something's wrong with me. And then when I started reading your new book, I was like, I'm not alone. I'm not by myself in that. And so you mention in the book that in recent years, women have been coming to you and saying, I think I might be from Mars and not completely from Venus, and vice versa. So this book kind of takes a look at the modern day viewpoint of that from both the male and the female. Is that why you wrote the book?
Yes, I think it was time to write the book. I've been teaching seminars over 40 years, and there's just new challenges in relationships. I talk about one of the early chapters. I was at a dinner party, and I was talking about a book I was writing, and she said, I don't think men are from Mars, women are from Venus is true at all. I mean, we're not that different at all. And her husband took me to the side and said, actually, her husband said right then, well, if we just changed women are from Mars and men are from Venus, it would describe our relationship perfectly. And he went on to describe, how his wife is kind of like an overworked man who comes home, except there is a difference, is that when women are more on their male side, they come home and they don't relax.
Right.
You see, when a man's on his male side working hard during the day, he often does come home and just sort of go to his cave. Whereas she was feeling like a guy because she would come home and didn't want to talk about her day or be intimate or whatever in that way because she was too busy. And that's part of what happens to women when they go to their, what I'm calling in the book, her male side. And I explore the biology of that, which is just simply when you're doing a job that's creating testosterone, it's hard to shift back to making more estrogen.
Right.
So when women end their day, after making a lot of testosterone, being leaders, being entrepreneurs, being independent, being decisive, these are all qualities that both men and women have. But when you're expressing those qualities, it primarily makes male hormone, testosterone, and it doesn't make estrogen. And a woman's body is such that, unlike a man's, if she doesn't have about 10 times more estrogen than a man, and at certain times of the month, if she doesn't have 20 times more estrogen than a man, her stress levels will be high. And so she's not going to experience the kind of love and happiness that she's looking for in her marriage.
Yeah, and I know you talk a lot about the, men, expressing one side and not the other, and women as well, and how it actually does affect our hormones, but it also affects kind of the passion and how whether or not we're attracted to one another as well, right?
Very much so. One of the promises of this book is to help couples understand why the passion goes away, why the attraction becomes less and less. Not that we don't love our partners, because see, throughout history, couples could get married and stay married for a lifetime because they loved each other, but there was kind of a contentment,
right,
a friendship that they developed, a loyalty that they developed, and that's a wonderful thing. Today, people are wanting more than that. And actually, if you don't get more than that, it's really even hard to feel contentment because there's a freedom to express my female side. I mean, back in the 60s is sort of when a lot of this happened, where women started having women's groups to assert their independence and their equality and all that, which is a good thing for equality. And men were out demonstrating for peace instead of going to the army, wearing pink shirts, bell-bottom pants, growing out your hair, expressing your artistic side. and also not making commitments to marriage. So what we've seen since then is more and more men not being committed to marriage and more divorces, but actually twice as many people are now single as before. And it's not just men not wanting to make that commitment, which is a male quality. Commitment is a male quality, but the commitment to relationship is a female quality as well. But that sense of I'll stick through whatever it takes is our male side. So what could be confusing, and sometimes is what is our masculine qualities and what are our female qualities?
Right.
And as conscious beings in a modern world where we are free to express all parts of ourselves, as soon as you have the freedom and permission to be independent, we can just go back 50 years and see that many men did not want to marry an independent woman. I mean, that's how it was. And even today, women who are, successful in their 40s are going, where are the men? So how much freedom is there for women to have a job and be independent and be educated and also be happily married? Way more than ever before in history, for certain. But what are the challenges that come along with that is that as women go more to their male side, and I'm identifying that side as male, because some people say, why do we have to say that's male? Because there's two different sets of hormones that regulate men and women. If a man has low testosterone, even instead of 20 to 30 times more than a woman's, maybe 5 times more than a woman's, he'll be depressed. If he has the same level of testosterone as a woman, an average happy woman, he'll have a heart attack and have prostate cancer. So, these are real reality differences, and there's certain behaviors that stimulate testosterone, certain behaviors that stimulate estrogen. And estrogen is whenever we're feeling love, when we're feeling nurturing, when we're feeling cooperation, when we're feeling dependence, we're feeling interdependence, all of that is our estrogen side. And if we have the freedom to express both sides, we're going to have more aliveness, more energy, and more passion. And in the beginning of a marriage, or beginning of a relationship even, there's kind of this freedom to be all that we can be. And that's why there's so much juice in the beginning. I mean, it's incredible. And everybody goes, I want that in my life, this tremendous aliveness, if we can just call it aliveness, through relationship. There's places where we can feel more alive. In my work, for example, if you happen to be very successful and love your work, you can feel very alive. If you are in a marriage with someone you love and you're successful and stimulating the hormones that your partner needs the most to find balance, then you'll experience aliveness in your marriage. And the hormones that most women need most in their marriage is their partner to know what are the skills that can help her reconnect with the stimulation of estrogen, the stimulation of progesterone, the stimulation of oxytocin, the stimulation of prolactin. So I've written a huge book describing to men what behaviors will stimulate those different hormones in a woman at what time of the month.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of it too. At different times of the month, when a woman's ovulating, she needs 20 times more estrogen than a man. If she doesn't get it, she's going to feel 20 times more upset with that man.
Right.
So there's a dance of hormones that regulates our moods throughout the month, as well as for men, the dance of testosterone. And what helps to boost his testosterone in his relationship. So there's new information based on this massive amount of research which has come out in the last 10 years, trying to understand our hormones of men and women. And certainly nobody questions that they're very, very different, and our hormonal needs are very, very different. And where people really haven't yet got a lot of knowledge is what behaviors stimulate those hormones. Which I've been able to collect together several studies to back it up, but it's my own experience of 40 years understanding what makes women happy, what makes women unhappy, what makes men happy, what makes men want to commit in relationship, etc. Here's sort of an anecdotal example of this. I developed this story, which was based on an experience with my wife, but it was most useful when I was trying to explain back in 30 years ago when nobody even would accept that men and women were different. That was politically incorrect. And quite often women would feel like, well, we're no different, and why should we treat each other differently? And the rules should be exactly the same for both, and so forth. And I gave an example because I just come back from a little vacation with my wife. We did a getaway to a little cabin in the woods up in Oregon, and we're in up in California here. So we drove maybe we thought it was 8 hours. It tended to be 12 hours. And it was longer than we thought. So we got there late at night where there are no lights. And we barely found this little cabin. We didn't know where we were. We were in the woods. But at the restaurant before we got there was this newspaper report of stalking bears that go in and attack and kill people. And it happened to be the same area where we were going.
Oh, boy.
So naturally, we had a little nervousness about going into this cabin. And once we were there unpacking, we heard some sounds outside. And so we got really nervous. And so I said, okay, sit by the phone. I'm going to just go check. And so I went outside and checked, and it was a raccoon, and then came back in. And she said, wow, that was so scary. I went, yes. And she said, would you hold me? I said, yes. And anybody who's in a situation like that knows what happened for the rest of the night. We had great sex because she was scared and I was holding her. Right. Now, let's imagine the other scenario. Imagine that my wife had said to me, John, imagine I said to my wife, all right, Bonnie, would you go out and check, and I'm going to sit by the phone, okay?
Right.
And then when she came back, I said, that was so scary when you were out there. Would you hold me? The hormones that would get produced inside of her are the mothering hormones.
Right.
And those are not the sexual hormones. And even worse would be another scenario where we heard the sound, and then my wife says, okay, you sit by the phone, and I'm going to go out. She would take charge and do it all, and I'd come back, and I'd say, oh, thank you so much. And she'd hold me, and nothing would happen.
Right.
So this is a dynamic. There's a place for hormones, and we have to recognize that certain roles that we play will stimulate those hormones. Mm-hmm. What's new in the modern world is that the culture has changed, thank goodness, where the culture does not say women can't be in a man's role. The culture does not say a man can't be in a feminine role. So many men today want to be participating in their children. They go to court to fight for equal caring for the children after divorce. I mean, this is a big thing to men. It never has been. Women always got the kids, and women were always in charge of the kids. Men want to participate in the family. Men want to have more fun in their lives. They don't want to just be these sort of workaholics, most men. And so the world has changed. So the culture gives us permission to be all of who we can be. But in the pleasure of expressing suppressed parts of us, we can go too far to one side and neglect the other. And that's what my book's about, is how to help people come back into balance.
Into balance, right. And one of the things you talk about in the last book, and that you talk about in this book, and I know it's just part of your teaching, is that men need what you call cave time. So my question is, why is it so important for them? Does that relate back to hormones? And why do women need to understand this and allow for it without getting upset about it?
Okay, well, the first thing here is that one of my messages in the new book is that many men today, modern men, are not taking their cave time. Mm. They come home, and in a sense they're in a cave, but they're continuing to do business online. So they continue to do their work. Right. And men have to stop working. Okay. If a man's working all the time, he will burn out. And burnout means his testosterone will run too low. So that's what will happen to his brain. And his testosterone will run low, his dopamine levels will run low, he'll lose his energy. So men have to have rest, they have to work hard, and then have time for recovery. Every athlete knows this. You've got to push yourself, and then you've got to rest your muscles for them to rebuild. And you rest so that your body can now rebuild a surplus of testosterone to then rebuild those muscles. Likewise, when I, as a man, go out and work, I use up much of my testosterone, and I come home to rest in order to replenish the hormones I need to be happy and healthy and fulfilled. So this cave time has been, it's wasn't labeled a cave, but throughout history in every culture, right now in indigenous tribes, you'll see very commonly men will come back after working and just sort of sit around and do nothing. The do nothing aspect of it is to relax their muscles. And they'll also hang out with, because when you relax your muscles, it gives your muscles a chance, your body a chance to rebuild the testosterone, rather than constantly using your testosterone to manage your muscles. Okay. Men have 25% more muscle mass. And so this is why women don't experience this as important or as significant. And what rebuilds testosterone is lowering estrogen. So if you came home and started talking about your feelings to your partner or listening to her feelings, your estrogen levels will go up, and estrogen inhibits testosterone production. So there's sort of this detachment that men go through. It has nothing to do with whether they love their partner. It's just what he has to do to recover. It'd be kind of like, I bruised the muscle, I need to go and do some therapy. Well, meanwhile, if a woman doesn't understand this, it's because it's generally speaking not her instinctive reaction to stress. What's going to happen is when he pulls away from any estrogen-producing experience, which means connection. Estrogen is your love, your connection, your interest in each other, your relationship. He has to withdraw from estrogen activities, estrogen-stimulating activities. And so he pulls away, and she notices that. Well, why isn't he interested in me? You know, when he was pursuing me, he was always interested in me. And he wanted to be around me, and he was engaged with me. And now suddenly he's pulling away. What did I do wrong? Or why doesn't he love me? Or what is he feeling inside? I don't feel connected to him. I want to try to get in there. And that's his cave. And she wants to get in there when the very thing he needs is to keep people out for just a little while. And then when he feels better, and psychologically, the way this looks is men will say to another guy, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Let's drink a beer. Let's make some jokes. Let's have fun. As opposed to dwelling on their problems all the time. It's an easy thing for men if they use this ability and develop this ability, which is the ability to forget it temporarily until you're ready to solve it or until you can do something to solve it. That's a very important skill, and men's hormones and brain are wired up to do that. Women's generally aren't. And therefore, when a woman is upset about something, she'll want to talk about something because talking about what's bothering you increases estrogen. So that's helping her to restore her balance of hormones inside of her. Talking about what's wonderful in her life is also going to stimulate estrogen. But if there's stresses, having to hold back and hold in those stresses, hide those stresses, put makeup over that actually raises her stress, rather than allowing her to let it go by restoring hormonal balance. And whenever you're vulnerable and express yourself, when you feel seen and heard and free in that way, your estrogen levels go up. Your ability to love goes up. So a woman might be disturbed about something, and she'd want to talk about it, but then she doesn't feel safe to talk about it because her partner might not be a good listener. He might be argumentative. He might take it personally. Might get bent out of shape, or he just won't listen and he'll interrupt her. So she'll hold it inside. But let's take the example where she's annoyed with him and she's holding it inside. She'll stop talking and she'll pull away. She'll start to detach from him. So when men detach, women assume we must be mad at you. We must be hiding something from you. We don't want to share something with you. So it can cause all kinds of stress inside. But the bottom line is, when a woman comes home from work today, she hasn't had all day to create a beautiful home and to create her lifestyle, whatever. She needs help. And so if he's over there sitting in his cave, she feels like he doesn't want to help me. He's not willing to help me. He's ignoring me. And I might be making banging noises and whatever, and he doesn't even hear it. He doesn't see the sign. She might go, oh, I'm so tired. There's so much to do. And he'll go, yeah, so many things to do. And then turn the TV on. So he doesn't understand what her requests are. She doesn't interpret his behavior. And so we have unnecessary tension. So that's the cave idea. And ironically, as women become more on their male side, they also need to take cave time. So my book encourages women to take cave time, but it's different from a man's. It's not testosterone stimulating and rebuilding cave time, which is like to sit there and just relax and hang out and do nothing. But it's to do things, to express yourself or do things where you feel safe or where you enjoy it and where you feel happy. And so for a lot of women, when they hear my message, they feel like, oh, good, this is permission for me to not feel selfish if I do something for me.
Right.
Because historically, and there's a long lineage of cultural conditioning for women, that if you do things for yourself, you're selfish. And women in the past, if they were spending all day with other women, with children, in a safe environment, a nurturing environment, their estrogen levels were plenty high, so they really didn't have to take time for themselves. But taking time for yourself, doing estrogen stimulating activities or progesterone stimulating activities is primarily necessary for women to experience health and happiness in a world where most of their day they're preoccupied doing things that stimulate testosterone and not estrogen and not progesterone. So the bottom line, that if somebody hears half of what I just said, they might be thinking I'm saying women should not be in the workplace. I'm not saying that at all. Might be saying women can't be good leaders. I'm not saying that at all. I'm basically saying that for women to experience happiness and lasting romance and passion and lower stress levels in their life, they need to find that balance of testosterone activities with estrogen producing activities. And the same thing for men. Men are not finding balance either. Either they're out of work and they're wasting their time, too much of their time, or they're overworking. And in both cases, their stresses are higher and they're experiencing heart attacks just like women are. Although I have to say that now the statistics are changing. In the last 5 years, more women are having heart attacks, more women are experiencing dementia. And if it wasn't for construction jobs, women would be dying, having a much shorter lifespan than men. I think it's 6 times more women have Alzheimer's than men. So these things are really changing in a direction where women used to be the healthier sex. Men are actually becoming more the healthier sex.
Right. So what are some things that men should be doing to balance themselves, and what are some things that women need to know or understand in order to help them achieve that?
Well, there's a lot of things. So one of the things men have to learn in order to find balance is if you're in a relationship, your tendency is going to be your wife's overwhelmed. And she's overwhelmed, saying we have to do all these things. And so his tendency is to jump in there and start doing all these things with her. And then you end up with 2 overwhelmed people. And the passion is gone. You know, I talk to couples all the time. They're married, they love each other, but they're not having sex. And they say, oh, we have no time for it. They have plenty of time for it. They watch the news that night. They watch the TV show that night. They have time for it. They don't have the energy for it. They don't have the actual hormonal stimulation that puts them in the mood that says sex is more important than this and this and this. So the reality is this exhaustion, but really even that is a hormonal imbalance. Men have to take time. Ideally, if a man could take 20 minutes twice a day to meditate, which is, part of my background with TM, Transcendental Meditation, which kind of forced you, if you followed the program, to take 20 minutes to go into your cave. Right. Okay, that's cave time. You just quiet the mind. Anytime you quiet the mind, you're going to rebuild your testosterone if you're a man. Women who are very busy in the world today, they also need to rebuild their testosterone. I mean, testosterone, when they're doing testosterone activities, it lowers their estrogen, but they also become depleted in testosterone, and women do need some. Yeah. So silence is a testosterone booster. Also, practical example is whenever a man feels he's successful in making his wife happy, that will be a testosterone booster. So if my expectation in my job, for example, is that I have to have let's say sales are $10,000 a day, and that's what's expected of me, then if I don't reach $10,000 a day, was I successful? No. So men have to have a realistic expectation that with a wife, some days she's going to be $10,000 a day, and other days it's only going to be $2,000. And that's the normal cycle. Okay, there's a cycle that women have where they're going to be happier at different times in the month than at other times. There's a part of the month where a woman can feel her need for a man's support greater than at other times. If you catch those times, then what happens is you get $10,000 that day in terms of success. Other days it's going to be $2,000, but that's successful. You have to consider that that's what you should expect. So it's kind of like women are like the weather. I kind of recondition men. In the beginning, all you had to do is call them a few times and they were happy. I have daughters. When they were young, if a guy called, they'd get all excited like, they won the lottery. And, oh, did he call again? So, guy gets conditioned in the beginning of a relationship that he has the power to make his girlfriend, wife happy. Well, when she starts when routine settles in, then she's going to go on a cycle where sometimes she's happy and sometimes she's not. And depending upon the woman and the situation in her life, she's going to be happier, but it's never going to be the same. So men have to let go of the idea that it's their job to make her happy. So men, what is your job? Your job is to make her safe. That's what men have always done, and that still is the most important thing. But no longer physically safe and comfortable, but now it's emotionally safe and comfortable. And that's the key to this, is learning the importance of women feeling free to express themselves. After all, what is the number one complaint women often have is he doesn't listen. That's a big complaint women have. He doesn't listen. And men do listen, but then what we do is then we give solutions. Right. And women, and some men, after I've even taught them how to listen, they might read my book and they learn to ask more questions and to listen more. Even in those situations, women will feel he doesn't listen because he's not doing what I want him to do. And that has nothing to do with whether he listened. And that's what women have to learn, is they often feel resentful. They feel like he doesn't hear me, he doesn't listen. But really what they're saying is, after he's listened to me, he doesn't do what I want him to do. Right. There's a control part there, which is kind of hidden inside. Because, it's like when my children were young and my daughter Lauren would want ice cream and she'd be all upset. I want ice cream. She'd see some people with ice cream and I'd say no. And she'd start to cry and I'd say, I know you're angry. You're angry because you want it and they're getting it. You're not getting it. And then she'd calm down. And she said, yeah, that's it. Assuming that now she's going to get ice cream because I heard her. And right. I go, but you're not going to get ice cream. Then she starts to cry. And I said, I know why you're crying. She says, why? I say, because you feel like you'll never, ever get ice cream again. She goes, yes, they get it and I don't. I say, well, I know that's why you're crying, and that's not true. One day you will have ice cream, just not today. You can't have ice cream every day. We do it on special occasions. Then she starts to cry a little bit more, and I said, sweetie, we will have special occasions. Next Sunday will be a special occasion. And she said, really? You promise? I go, yes, I promise. So, but the message I gave there is that when you feel heard, you think you're going to get your way. And that's not always the case. And what I have found out in relationships is that when women can get clear about what being heard means, is that it's much easier for her to lower her stress, come back into balance when she feels seen and heard. Mm-hmm. Then she's able to give more love. And while she's feeling love, men are much more flexible to give her everything she wants. Mm-hmm. There is kind of an unfair disadvantage for men in relationships if you're just thinking about what you want. Because what men want more than anything is to feel successful in making her happy. Now, I try to train men not to be that way. A man should feel successful in providing safety for women to find their own happiness. And it's part of our modern neurosis that we expect our partner to make us happy. Right. Part of that is because, it wasn't a previous neurosis to expect your partner to give you love or to expect your partner to go to work and provide money for you. Women would expect, and rightly so, their partner would work hard and be a good provider, and men would expect when they come home, their wives would not complain, their wives would not ask for more, their wives would tend to their needs, and that was the deal. Mm-hmm. And happy marriage, if you could do that, it was good. And I happened to grow up in a family where my dad was a good provider, and my mother knew how to be happy and had 7 children, lived in a safe neighborhood, and was happy all the time. So that old system, when the man could make enough money, did work. If he also had manners and so forth. My dad just had a good job. He wasn't a crook or something. Right. So, they're 2 functional people who lucked out and, had enough education and enough opportunity for he could be a good provider. And she got to do her life dream, which was to be a mother. And she did it very well. But today, she wouldn't be able to do it well. Most men can't fully provide for their family, and most women are too busy to be happy because they don't have these communication skills of how to get the extra support they need to come back to their female side. Because for a woman, just driving in traffic, if you have kids today, you can't do what my mother did with her 6 boys, 1 girl, but with the 6 boys, she would just say, go play. Just go play. Right. We went on Go sit outside, be bored, find something to do, or find somebody to play, or go to somebody's house, maybe get some desserts. But today, you say to your kids, go play, you don't know what's going to happen. They're just going to go off somewhere and get addicted to video games, addicted, exposed to pornography. They're going to eat lots of junk food. There's drugs out there, all kinds of stuff. So mothers and fathers have to hover around their kids to protect them from the dangers that exist today in terms of psychological dangers. And so now you got to send them to art class and dancing class and karate class and all these different activities, soccer practice and go to this. It used to be that the school provided that. It used to be school had music class, art class, lots of sporting events, lots of after-school sporting events. And we're pulling away from all of that. We've gone into the society where everything is about passing reading, writing, and arithmetic tests.
Right.
And you can see the outcome is we've got all these kids being prescribed with drugs.
Yeah.
One of my books even showed that art class, our singing class, our dance class, our drama class, any of those four things that used to be a part of education with a big emphasis, any of those activities and athletics has been proven to be, in some studies, more effective than these Ritalin drugs.
Yeah.
It's shocking what we've done to our children, and parents are not aware of it. We try to compensate for it. Now the mother's driving around all the time trying to schedule this kid and that kid and do this. All that scheduling and all that rushing stimulates testosterone.
Right.
So once again, you're going way to the male side, and what can bring you back to the female side is the quality of your nurturing relationships where you feel safe to be yourself.
And one of the things you talk about when you talk about getting back to that female side is a concept called pair bonding, which actually increases some of those female testosterone, the female hormones.
Estrogen
and oxytocin, I think it is. So
yes.
Can you explain what actually that is and how we can accomplish that?
Yeah, there's been about last 15 years, the big awakening was a study done at UCLA on oxytocin. What they found is that in nurturing type activities, they can measure when oxytocin levels go up in women, not men, but when it goes up in women, their cortisol levels go down. So that was a big, huge distinction, is that, touch, affection, holding hands, hugs, getting a massage, going shopping, relaxing activities, basically to different degrees, if you enjoy them, increase oxytocin. Now, oxytocin then lowers your stress. Now, there's more research that's come out later and shows that if your estrogen levels are low, oxytocin doesn't lower your stress. Oh. Boom. So now we go into, okay, what's really lowering your stress is estrogen. Okay, you need to have estrogen. And what oxytocin does, then when you understand, well, how did oxytocin influence estrogen? Because it turns out that if you get stimulation of oxytocin, then slowly but surely your estrogen levels start to come up. And it's the estrogen, which is sort of the female side. So activities that stimulate oxytocin help to elevate estrogen. However, how does that happen? Well, it turns out oxytocin lowers testosterone. So estrogen can go up. When your testosterone is up, male energy pushes female energy down. Oxytocin is this sort of ultimate balancer. And if testosterone is too high, it will now lower it so estrogen can come up. And then you feel more loving, more relaxed, more open, more giving, more generous, more selfless. All those things happen with estrogen starting to rise up. But oxytocin becomes a mediator, in a sense, to balance the hormone. That's why it's so important. It becomes the doorway to which you can come back to your female side. So pair bonding is one of the types of activities that particularly stimulates oxytocin in order to increase estrogen. And pair bonding is either when you're being massaged or you're being touched with affection in a romantic setting or in a nurturing setting. But there's many, many other things that stimulate oxytocin. And so that's called pair bonding, where the person who's getting the oxytocin is dependent on someone else for something to support them. So if you go to a doctor and they give you advice, then your oxytocin goes up and then your estrogen goes up. if you're going to a doctor and your life's in danger and you're like, what am I going to do? I'm scared. And you go to a doctor, your oxytocin is going to go even more up. So basically, whenever you feel the need for help, to the extent you feel the need for support and you get it from someone, the person who gives you that support, their testosterone will go up, and you're the person who's receiving that support, your oxytocin will go up, allowing your estrogen to go up. So that's a pair bonding situation. Going to your chiropractor, going to your acupuncturist. If you were to take a class on some subject, I just taught a class on meditation this weekend. So for all the women, their oxytocin levels are going very, very high, increasing their estrogen levels. For the men, it would create a little more oxytocin than normal, but it wouldn't be such a big thing just because they were relating to a man. Whenever men watch another man be successful, men identify with that man, and their testosterone goes up. It's like if I watch my favorite football team win a game, I'm identifying with my team, and my testosterone will go up. For women, they read romantic novels. They would read soap operas. I watch soap operas. They go to movies where there's a female and there's a lot of talking. Women often get a lot of oxytocin and estrogen from that because they identify with the talking of someone complaining, someone being in danger, someone needing help. And so all of our mythologies and stories typically swing around female in distress, male as the knight in shining armor. That's because that is the metaphor of pair bonding. That's the prince kissing Snow White and awakens her beauty. Right. You know, it's the female being dependent on the male, but the male only shines when he's successful in winning the heart of the female. Otherwise, he's a loser. Mm-hmm. So we both have vulnerabilities. We are dependent on each other. But the man needs to feel successful in providing something of great value. Mm-hmm. Now, once women can make money, there's no great value a man can add to her. So historically, the value men gave to women in modern times was money. The opportunity for her to be safe and comfortable to raise children. That was his providing for her. But now women can do that alone. At least theoretically, they can do it alone. They can hire a nanny. They can make their own money. What do they need a man for? So if a woman doesn't need a man, there's no pair bonding that she'll experience when connecting with him, so she won't feel a strong attraction to him. She won't feel a bond for him. This is a sort of a crisis for many women, you know, in their late 30s and 40s, is they don't find a man that's good enough, that rings their bell, that they fall in love with, that's their soulmate. They just don't get that reaction because they're not in touch enough with their female side, the estrogen side, which needs to be about 10 times higher than his estrogen for her to feel a bond with him. Typically speaking, women will have 10 times more estrogen than a man, and at ovulation she'll have 20 times more estrogen than a man. And if a man can sort of be her knight in shining armor at that time, she will bond with him. And that will make her fall in love with him. And she has a chance of having an ongoing relationship with him. But if she doesn't experience those peak levels of estrogen, she's not going to feel the need for the man who's available in her life.
Okay. And you actually have a whole chapter on something called you time, we time, and me time. And it's a big concept, I think, for couples to understand, because when it comes down to it, women need the we time in order to shift to the me time from that you time of being out and working, whereas men don't really require that. So can you explain what that means and how that, because I think that's like if I almost feel like if people can get that, it's like they can start there.
You know, that's the way. Nobody's looking for that, but my daughter Lauren Gray, she also is a teacher of relationships at my website mooresvenus.com. She's the one who alerted me to that. You know, she's saying, Dad, you're always talking about men have cave time. She's talking about herself. I have a successful relationship because I know whenever I'm getting petty, irritable, grumpy inside, I have not been taking care of me. And this is the balance for women. When you live in a world where you're spending a lot of your day in testosterone land, you also have to take me time. You also need your cave time, but it's more of an estrogen stimulating cave time. So all day long you're giving to others. that must be balanced with giving to yourself. And one of the big complaints women often have today is, I do so much, I give so much, and I have no time for me. They almost put a gold star on themselves and say, I have no time for me. I'm so generous in giving. And it is true. They are so generous in giving, but they're stressed. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're not able to sleep well at night. They're not able to feel their heart. And quite often, they resent their husbands who are happily sitting on the couch. Why does he get to do that? I got all this stuff to do. Now, so what Lauren has explained, which is that women need time for you time to be with others, because that's their male side has to come out. Then they need time for their relationship. That's their estrogen time. But they also need their progesterone time. And the progesterone time is the me time. That's how you build up that's where the progesterone comes from. And also rebuild your testosterone to the extent that you've depleted it during your workday. Okay. And the point you just wanted me to talk about is so clear. She discovered it and told me, Dad, we need we time, particularly to produce the oxytocin to lower the testosterone of the day. And if we need to take me time, then we can shift over into me time, or we can shift into socializing. Creating a social life is one progesterone producer. Me time, just doing anything that you love to do that doesn't involve any sacrifice on your part or have to do with your partner, depending on your partner or the pair bonding. What happens is you just do a little bit of pair bonding, which then releases you to come back to your me time. And otherwise, it's very hard to shift from testosterone to thinking about yourself. Because thinking about yourself and nurturing yourself is basically rebuilding progesterone, but you have to have testosterone in your body to make progesterone. Progesterone is made from testosterone. So if you've used up all your testosterone at work, you can't make this progesterone. And progesterone is produced by social bonding or me time, which is self-nurturing time. So women need that nice balance. If you're going to go out and be like men, you have to have time for yourself that you enjoy that's not dependent on your partner. But often you need the we time with your partner to make the transition to me time. So I explain, in great depths and various examples how to do that. It can be as simple in my house as when I come home first thing, hug my wife, spend a few minutes with her. And sometimes she wants to spend more time with me. Sometimes she'll just go off and do something on her own and is very happy realizing that she's getting the time she needs for herself. But she uses me for that. Here's a different example. Imagine your wife saying to you, honey, would you make dinner tonight? I want to go take a bath and relax. And then afterwards, coming back after the relaxation of the bath and saying, oh, thank you so much for making dinner. I feel so much better. And that's one scenario. Another scenario is, honey, would you make dinner tonight because I still have to pay bills? And I'm so overwhelmed. I have so much to do. Does the man feel like he's really contributing to your life? No. But what men want to see is that they take action, that there's a result that makes you really, really happy. No. And this is part of the insight of how to use a man in your life successfully. And whenever women are resenting men, it's because you're not using him. It's this huge resource. You just got to learn how to use him.
Right. Oh my gosh, I love that. So another piece that I wanted to ask you about, and I actually wrote this quote down because I feel like it's so important for people to get, is you say that the golden rule of a soulmate relationship is when a man or woman feels they're not getting enough attention, love, and support, that they actually should shift their attention to taking more cave or me time. And it almost seems counterintuitive. So can you explain how that works?
Yes, it's the 4 steps to getting everything you want in a relationship. And I just want anybody to know that they'll be able to come to my website and take our free course on how to get everything you want in your relationship.
Oh, cool.
But this book is really the meat of it. And the first step is, if you're not getting what you want, to complain to somebody when you're not getting what you want is to resist them. And anything you resist will persist. It's just, if I'm doing my best and my wife complains, it's kind of like, now I'm not getting paid for what I just did, so why should I work harder? There's just a sense of resistance. When you resist your partner, you will tend to get less. So how to get more? The first step is notice, become aware of the ways you're trying to change your partner so they will give you more. Give up that completely because it's not working, right? So if something's not working, stop doing it. So If you're not getting what you want, then you've got to change what you're doing. And the first thing you're always doing when you're trying to get more is change your partner to give you more. First step is stop changing them. And people do that in different ways. Often women do it by complaining. Women do it by giving advice. Men do it by complaining. Men do it by giving advice. So unsolicited advice.
Right.
So that would be the first thing. Stop that. The second step is, well, what do you do then? Instead of change them, change yourself. And how do you change yourself? You come back to not feeling resentful. You come back to feeling happy and not be dependent on your partner changing. The whole art to getting more is to not be dependent on more, to be happy, but to find your happiness inside, so that once you find that, and that's the whole top technology of understanding for women how to create their progesterone and estrogen without depending on a man, how men can rebuild their testosterone without depending upon a woman looking at him like he's her hero. So they would become whole individuals. So how to change yourself to come back into balance so that your heart can open. Once your heart is open, you want to give love. So step 3 is to understand the different types of love that your partner needs and give them more. So when you're getting less, step 1, stop looking for more, change yourself. Step 3, give more. But not just give more, because people, when they give more, they tend to give more of what they want. And as opposed to knowing what their partner wants. And that's where understanding the hormonal differences between men and women is very significant. What men need, and there's big charts in the book on the things men need most and the things women need most. Now somebody can say, oh, John, it's just semantics. We all need love. I go, yes, love is like ice cream, and there's lots of flavors, and some people have their favorite flavors. And it's also like love is like different vitamins, vitamin B, C, D. Men need different vitamins than women, more of, and women need more of others. So there's a distinction in that. And that's part of where all the science is coming out, because the drug companies fund all this science of the differences because they see that certain drugs work for men and they don't work for women.
Right. And
certain things work for women and they don't work for men. And so we get that there's a different biology. And then on the other side, we have the feminist movement where they're all saying there's no differences at all and the brain differences are insignificant and no one's proven that hormonal differences change your mood. I mean, where does that come from? Everybody knows that. Right. But anyway, that's the third step, is give more of what your partner needs the most. Then step 4 is ask for more in small increments and celebrate every step and make sure you acknowledge that celebration. It seems so trivial. We don't realize, we don't understand the buttons that make our partners feel best. We don't realize our power. And here's a cute little example. So for years, I've been married now 31 years, lovely, wonderful relationship. And for most of that time, my wife would complain, you left the toilet seat up. Just that simple little thing. It's a complaint, but John, you left the toilet seat up again. You left the toilet seat up again. Last night, you left the toilet seat up. This continuous complaint throughout a marriage. And I'm doing my very best to remember. Sometimes you just forget, okay? It's not in my mind. I don't have the experience of falling into the toilet when the seat's not there. So it's not like something that stayed in my mind. But so many times I do put it down, but all I hear is you never put the toilet seat down. And so then Lauren comes along, grows up, becomes master of all this. And she said, so I was over at Lauren's house and I put the toilet seat down and she said, yay, Dad, you put the toilet seat down. That's all it took. Whenever I go there, I'm looking for, she must have done it for about 6 months. She just trained me. Every time she went to the bathroom, and I would go in there and I start to leave, I go back. I'd say, is it down? Because I want to keep, once you're making an A or an A+, you want to keep making that A+. Mm-hmm. But if you don't get the A+, there's no motivation to get it again and again and again. Mm-hmm. So she trained me by simply ignoring it when I had it down, and when I had it up, to celebrate the small change. And it does make a difference.
Right, sure. And one of the last things I want to touch on is and again, there's a whole chapter on this, but you say that, women really want to be heard and men really want to be appreciated. But the difference is that men and women require different support in order to feel appreciated. So can you explain kind of what men need to know about appreciating women and vice versa?
Yes, we all want to be appreciated. And having said that, it's the woman's male side that wants to be appreciated. But just appreciating her male side will not bring her peace of mind. You've got to acknowledge and see and hear her female side, then appreciate what she does, and she'll get it. For men, you just have to appreciate what they do. So that's the overview. It's a big subject, but I'll get into the answer that you're looking for, which is a simple example. Helen, I worked for me over 35 years ago. Helen worked for me, and then she was like the perfect assistant. I was just me teaching my seminars, my counseling practice, and Helen. She organized all my clients. She took their money. She put it in the bank. She handled my books. She paid my taxes. She scheduled my seminars. She did the brochure. She managed the whole thing. That was her job. My job was teaching the seminars and seeing 8 hours a day listening to women talk. Okay, so we had our partnership. I'm doing my job. She's doing her job. Then she says she wants to quit. And I said, why? And because I just given her another raise. And she said, because I don't feel appreciated. And inside myself, I thought, how could she not feel appreciated? I thank God for this lady. She's the dream person. I never criticized her. I never tried to improve her. I never told her what to do. She just did it all. And it wasn't like I was disappointed with her work ever. How could she not feel appreciated? And so I said to her, so why is it you don't feel appreciated? And she says, well, you don't even know what I do. And of course, that's why I appreciated her so much. I didn't need to know what she does. I had my department. She had her department. We were successful.
Right.
So I listened to that. And then I said to her, okay, pull it off for 2 weeks and then let's reevaluate. And then every day I started finding out what she does. I just asked her questions for 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, just exploring what her experiences were. And she'd say, oh, I called 3 times. They changed the date on us, and that client so-and-so, she never pays, and she's always changing. It's like if anybody appreciates you, she doesn't. So she was like fighting for me all the time. She was like right there, and I didn't know. I just knew the results was no drama. Everything was working.
Right.
So by her being able to verbalize to me, once again, express how she felt, express what she was thinking, express her experience, by being seen in that way, now she felt appreciated. But from my point of view, I'd always appreciated her before, appreciated her after. It just didn't get to her. And so when women are complaining about their husbands, it's very common. They'll often say, I don't feel appreciated. But really, the husband is going, what is she talking about? Of course I appreciate her. I married her. It doesn't come across. But for his appreciation to get in there, you have to look at her feminine need, which is to be respected, understood, and cared for. Those are the primary buttons for women, to be respected, to be understood, and cared for. And you know, when you respect someone and you care for them and you understand them, then that person will also feel appreciated. But the irony is the appreciation increases testosterone. What increases estrogen is to respect someone. You see, if you look at these kings who are all crazy around the world, noble people who didn't earn what they got, they rule other people, they're crazy. They're egotistical, they're narcissistic, they're demanding, they're impulsive, they get angry about things, they start wars. Those people basically are getting a lot of respect, right? Does it make them a better human being? No. And people doing things for them because, particularly if it's a male, when you respect a male, it increases estrogen. Respect a woman, it increases estrogen. Too much estrogen in men makes them really bad. Too much estrogen in women makes them wonderful. So when you respect a woman, it brings her estrogen up. When you respect a man, not that you shouldn't respect a man, we need estrogen too. But our greatest vulnerability is we need way more testosterone.
Right.
If our estrogen goes too high, our testosterone goes low, which makes us insecure, whiny, complaining, irritable, reactive. We take things personally. We want to start wars, and we get angry. Anger in men, that's another big chapter in there, is anger in men is estrogen going up. And most men kind of think, oh, I'm being very masculine when I'm angry. Yeah. And it's the weakest thing you can be. It's resorting back to primitive monkey man behavior. It's just simply a sign of insecurity. When men are insecure, afraid, their testosterone converts into estrogen. And this is what's happening to men today. They're getting angry all the time. So we have to learn to teach. And also, if a man gets angry in the presence of his wife, at his wife, it will shut her down way, way more than a woman ever getting angry. is that women depend on men for safety. And when men are angry, they don't feel safe. Historically speaking, when men are angry, they start wars and they kill people. When women are angry, they're just not in the mood for sex, basically. I mean, if nobody gets killed and whatever, you know, they might start a new relationship, whatever, but it's not your death, your security, your life is not in danger.
Right.
And women know this. This is why historically women never went to men to complain or be, get angry at men and all that. Women have been greatly suppressed of their emotions because negative emotions an insecure man, his negative emotions would come up and dangerous things could happen. So women had other women to talk to. But if we want passion to last in a marriage, not just contentment, we want all feelings to be expressed in women, but in appropriate ways. And for men to deal with their feelings in appropriate ways, which means if you're angry, don't talk. That's it for men. If you're angry, don't talk. Silence. Either meditate, lift weights, drive your car, listen to music, do push-ups, solve a problem, do a math problem. You have to do something to solve some problem that you can solve, and that will raise your testosterone. Then reflect on whatever made you angry and find forgiveness, understanding, empathy, and go back and resolve the issue from love, not from anger.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so great. Well, I just have to say thank you. I love that you wrote this book and that it touches on kind of what you spoke about, but expands upon all that you've been teaching. And it's just funny to me because I have a doctor friend who actually mentioned to me the other day that he's like, more and more men are going in and complaining and they're testing their testosterone and the testosterone is low. And it just seems to be happening more and more and more. And I think, a lot of these things I think are going to ring true for people and they're going to understand and then realize that they do have, more control over it and there is a reason for why women and men's hormones are kind of sort of switching sides on and off.
Yes, it all makes sense once you have an underlying picture. And to be clear, I've been teaching this 40 years. It wasn't until the last 10 years of hormonal research that I could put this puzzle together. So this has never been put together before. And it's really helpful to have sort of a scientific, factual understanding to make sense of all these different things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And again, congratulations on the book. I have it here, Beyond Mars and Venus. And people can go, what is the website they can go to find out about your workshops and all that?
They go to marsvenus.com, and if you get the book, you can go to marsvenus.com and just put your receipt order in. We'll send you our free seminar, audio seminar on Secrets of Great Sex.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate your time, and thank you to all of our Elevated viewers. We will see you next time.